Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Rusty Cagle. Hi, Rusty.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here with you, Adi.
It's great to have you here too. And I'm very excited about our conversation. You know, we met at the AI Collective that in Austin, which is a group that was put together by Jeff Woods, who is the author of a great book, AI Leadership, basically.
AI-driven leadership.
AI-driven leader, right? An AI-driven leader. And we both read the book. We decided to join the collective. We met there in Austin, us and another probably 100 entrepreneurs, and now it grew more and more. And we had a great conversation about AI and implementing AI in a business and how to become more efficient. And then you told me your story, and we really connected. I mean, you have a great story that said you got to share that story with our listeners, because it's a story of courage and grit and not giving up and really believing in yourself. And despite whatever life throws at you, you can become successful if you really have the intention to do so. So I thought it was a great story. But let me read the bio, and then we'll go into it. Okay. So Rusty, you are the CEO and founder of ASE Private Wealth. You're a nationally recognized strategic advisor and best-selling co-author with Chris Voss in Empathy and Understanding in Business. And you're also featured by Voss in the highly anticipated TV show, That's Right.
Yes.
And you spotlighting business leader. I mean, the TV show is about spotlighting business leaders who are reshaping the future of wealth. And you recently joined the AI Collective, and you were featured on Jeff Woods' AI-Driven Leader podcast, which is really phenomenal. And your innovative tax and wealth strategy have empowered business owners to redirect hundreds of millions in potential tax liability into new growth, impact, and opportunity. Your 100-year impact, TM, so it's trademarked, so it's 100-year impact, vision, and expertise in building sustainable, purpose-driven wealth, set a new standard for legacy and leadership. So, this is definitely, for our listeners, if you want to know more about how to create business, create lasting value for your business, your family, and your community, this is what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, and the last part there, 100-year impact, it's I'm starting my 6th decade now, and we start viewing things a little bit differently. And we look at things in 100 years. You say, hey, is 100 years? May not live 100 years, but can you have a 100-year impact? And we see so many private held business owners who sacrifice, do all they can to create businesses and jobs and all the things that they do. And a lot of times we look and what is our purpose here on earth? And again, that's one of the things I'm very proud to keep helping people understand. What is their purpose? If they have purpose capital, right? What is it for? I mean, we're all here just a short period of time on earth. And so connecting with our purpose and what it truly means, that's something that I'm pretty excited about to continue to explore. So
that's beautiful. What is your purpose?
My purpose is to help privately held business owners redirect billions of dollars to humanitarian causes to impact the world, right? We have so many just entrepreneurs that can do so much. And if we look at it from what I call purpose capital, you have a certain amount that you get to keep and share with family members. But after that, there's this little thing called estate tax. I call it social capital tax. But that becomes purpose capital. So if we think of it differently, what is our purpose capital that if we think about where we can redirect it, because the government does give us an opportunity if we give it to charities or causes that do good in the world, then the government doesn't take their share. So we just want to redirect it and call it purpose capital and have a thoughtful conversation around that. And so that's what I'm excited about.
That's great. Well, let's talk about your story. So
Okay.
how did you get started?
Well, you're probably referring a little bit to how I grew up,
Mhm.
and I was born in the mid 60s and grew up not in a very good environment socially, right? And so it was very tough growing up. And I think most of my life I tried to prove everybody wrong because when I was younger, I was discriminated against because, who's your family and those things. And I think that was a drive for me to try to prove that I did belong. And a lot of times it was because of my own insecurities, right? And so a lot of people have different ways that drive them to a certain amount of success. And so really until I actually wrote the chapter with Chris Voss, Empathy and Understanding in Business, it was one of those things I really never let out. I was somewhat embarrassed, right? Grew up on, government entitlement programs, grew up in, a place that, we didn't have a lot in those things. And so it was something I kind of kept in. But once I was like, I'm actually advising people, some of the most significant people who grow businesses and then sell them. And I went from that environment to where I'm at now. It's really a great feeling. And so really writing that book and be able to do that allowed me to deal with a lot of insecurities that, I held deep in myself until I got to a point where I could just say, you know what, I want everybody else to know that, hey, it's okay to have some of the past, but once you address them, you can accomplish so many different things. So.
Absolutely. Well, you told me about a defining moment, that then you decided to just, there was a defining moment in terms of the decision that you made, that you had a chance,
Hmm.
you had a choice there either to go downhill or to just go uphill, and you decided to take the route to actually improve and do better. So tell us about
Yes,
that. Tell us
yes,
about that
yes.
time.
I remember that on our walk. A couple of other people wanted to go running, and you and I and a few others said, "Hey, let's take a nice walk." About 8 years ago now, I was helping a privately held business owner because a lot of my life, a financial advisor, and helping from that standpoint. And I was hoping to manage assets from this business that was going to sell for $200 million. And right when the sale was going to happen, the client said, "Hey, I appreciate everything that you've been doing and those sort of things, but I think one of the larger institutions is better suited to fit my needs." And for me at that point, it was a defining moment. I just lost a $200 million potential client. I knew that if I didn't focus differently on the privately held business owner and truly understand that I would never be able to help in the way I would. So I went on a quest there to never let that happen again. I studied what privately held business owners go through. I looked at things that cause them not to get the highest value. And literally, I've been on a quest that over the next 10 years, there's $15 trillion of privately held business owner value, and 80% of that will not be realized for its value. And to me, I think that's devastating. And so that is where that defining moment that you mentioned that I said, I want to be side by side with privately held business owners because I'm one, right? I'm doing it. I'm hiring people. I've got, I think now up to 18 employees, right? I put it on the line every day. I have to wear many different hats. And so I know what they go through, and to not be able to get the full value out of their enterprise, to me, is just it's devastating. So that's the reason I started focusing there, and we've actually had a pretty good success, and want to impact more lives.
That's awesome. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the different aspects that you learned from your experience throughout your career that are actually the make the most impact on a
Hmm.
privately held businesses.
Hmm. I think the biggest thing is understanding that growth eats cash, right? And when we start growing, there's this little thing called the IRS that as you get more and more successful, the more and more they want and they need that money. And,
I think it's
I,
your business. That's why I told my son I have two business partners,
that
the
is
IRS
true.
and the state, the State Department of Revenue. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what happens in with our company, we're a strategic advisory firm who focuses on driving substantial results for dynamic families and private held business owners. And we do that with three things: clarity, help them get clarity of purpose and where they're going, their aspirations; We help them with collaboration. Collaboration is a big thing that we don't see. We probably help business owners, a lot of professionals work in isolated silos. And the third component is helping them go from overly taxed to be fairly taxed. And that last one really starts resonating with people. If you've ever seen the Trivago commercial, I was presenting to like 100 people. I said, anybody seen a Trivago commercial where these two guys are sitting there, another guy like, hey, this is a great place. And the other guy said, yeah, it's a great price at 250. And the other guy said, oh, he didn't check Trivago. He could have got 25 to 40% off of the price. What I've found is working with privately held business owners, they tend to pay 25 to 40% more in taxes than they should because there's a lot of things that if professionals work together to help them, it would reduce their tax liability, not only while they're building their business, but also when they do exit their business. So the biggest thing I would say is having clarity around purpose and what you truly want from your business. Collaboration, that is the key. The more you have collaboration, the more you have a single source of clarity and stop being overly taxed and being fairly taxed.
Good. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the
Mhm.
clarity. Let's talk about each one of them. So in order to achieve clarity on your purpose, what are some questions that you ask business owners in order to achieve that clarity?
We have a process called the SAFE compass, right? So first, your situation. What are your aspirations? So I would ask you, what are your aspirations and why did you even start a business? That's one of the basic questions. I ask people, were you crazy when you started a business? Most of
And I'm
them
curious,
fail.
what do people say? Like, what are some answers that you get?
Some people say, I can't work for somebody else. I tried it and I was like, I have to do it on my own. Some people say that I got into it because I couldn't find a job, or some people say I saw a better way to do something and the company I was working with didn't want to change or use my ideas. So we start seeing this start happening. And then once people start getting into business, right, these statistics, 5% of the world's population become entrepreneurs and less than 1% of them become really successful. So they have a value there. And once you start doing that, it becomes harder and harder. I ask them, like, if you had to do it over, would you still do it? A lot of them say it cost me my family or it cost me so much. And so we start taking a step back and saying, all right, we're here now. What are your aspirations? What are some of the roadblocks you feel is getting in your way? So we start having that conversation because then that becomes clarity. And a lot of times they're like, I truly want to have more time with my family. I want to have freedom. I want to have fulfillment. So if we took a step back and we could do that. Now, how do we then get you to the point that you can get the most value out of your business or whatever your goal is? Sometimes they may want to, pass it down to generations, and those second generations aren't really interested in the business. And that becomes a difficult conversation. So our whole process is, what is your situation? Are you aware that there's a number of things you could probably do if you had the right type of collaboration with advisors around you? The F is fix it. Is this enough of a problem that you'd like to fix it? Yes or no? And then the E is where we come back and we just say, we'll evaluate everything, and then here's how we can help you based on your situation. But the center of that is clarity, collaboration, and then making sure advisors are working together on your behalf.
Right. So you get a clarity. Then in terms of collaboration, what does that mean?
Collaboration means if I were to ask you who are your advisors, bankers, CPAs, all the people, and we were to send them an email and ask them, what are your three top aspirations for you and your business? Would you get 12 different answers from four different professionals,
So it's basically
right? So,
alignment of all the trusted advisors and everybody working together towards the
correct,
same goal. And that
correct.
comes from the clarity, because if I want to go to point A, but my banker and my lawyer wants to go to point B, we're never going to get. Maybe we'll meet somewhere in the middle, but I'm not going to go to where I want to get.
Correct. And I love your podcast title, System Simplified, right? And that's what we call it, the spa treatment. Structure, process, and accountability. So creating a structure so that everybody can work together. What is that process? Whether it's quarterly, whether it's monthly, is tying that together. And then accountability. How do we become accountable to you, the client, for our professional services? And that usually leads to greater outcomes that benefit the client, which we all benefit when we work in that capacity.
Yeah, that's very good. And then you have the clarity, the collaboration, and then The
Be
third one
overly
was
taxed to be fairly taxed.
fairly
So
taxed.
this
Yeah.
is
So how do
one
you do that?
this is one we have a lot of fun with. I always tell people you can look at taxes as either a stressful ride or a fun ride. So think of the acronym RIDE, right? You can reduce your taxes, you can create income from your taxes, you can defer your taxes, you can eliminate taxes. If we start looking at it in a way like a football game, so if you're getting beat 48 to nothing in the fourth quarter and you call a timeout and you kick a field goal, and now you score and you carry the coach off the field, everybody would think you're crazy. But this is what happens in our society. We wait till the end of the year. Can we do something with equipment? Can we do something at the end of the year? Then we file an extension, then we wait till September or October, especially if you're a business owner, and then you repeat the cycle again. If we stop that cycle and we figure out what is going to be our tax liability before the year even begins, I call it tax capital. How do we look if you made $1 million and there's 400,000 that would have to go to the government? How do we look to redeploy that in a way that is beneficial to you, right? And so we start looking at that throughout the year instead of waiting till the end of the year. And so that helps us with cash flow. It helps us with not paying too much in estimated taxes. It helps in a lot of different ways. But breaking that cycle is the biggest thing to get everybody working together and then being able to do forecasting and seeing where you are. Once you start overlaying that, it becomes an aha moment for business owners in order to be able to not always fight this monster of this repeated cycle at the end of the year and then just trying to find deductions as opposed to treating it as tax capital instead of a tax liability.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's definitely it's prediction, right? So then you're not caught up, it's like anything else. If you have the prediction and you have the forecasting, then you are not caught up in putting out a fire because now you didn't anticipate that that tax bill, and it's already September of next year when you cannot do anything.
Yeah, yeah. And so often, I mean, that's just the system that we've just followed so many times. So we're just trying to break the system, trying to help people think differently about how they approach their tax capital, not their tax liability.
Absolutely. Can you give some examples of that? I mean, how you approach tax capital, like any case study or any examples that you can share with the listeners so they can understand better what is, I mean, how do you approach that?
Sure, sure. There's a lot of things you can do. One of the things that I will tell you based on the new tax code is entity structuring. So a lot of times we talk to business owners and probably more than 95% of them have S corps or LLCs. Creating a C corp allows you to do a whole lot of different things from a tax standpoint. So first we look at what is your entity structure, right? There's code 1202 that says, hey, if you create a C corp and you hold it for at least 5 years, then the first 10 million or 10 times your basis becomes tax free. So if you look at that and you have
When you sell.
when you sell, so you have to hold it for 5 years, right? Well, the new legislation now said that after 3 years, you can get 50% of that tax free. In the fourth year, you can get 75%. And in the fifth year, you can get 100%. So it could be something as little as setting up a different entity to see how you want to exit the business if you have that. Another thing you can do if you're older, kind of like myself, and you haven't put a lot of money away, you can set up a defined benefit plan where you can actually put more toward the owner and be able to have a pension plan that you can put more money that actually helps you on your personal balance sheet. There's a number of things that you can do just depending on what you need from a cash flow standpoint. The biggest thing is looking at all the things you can do on the business side first. Then that usually flows through to the personal side. Then what can you do on the personal side? There's a lot of things you can do with appreciated stocks for charitable giving. So it's more of figuring out all the things that optimize what you and your family is important to you, and then making sure we're orchestrating that in a way that we have our capital to deploy there, as opposed to paying it in estimated taxes or getting a refund and those type of things.
Right. So how big does a company need to be in order to work with you?
If someone has a profit, and typically when you get to a profit where you're in the highest tax bracket, that's when some strategic planning can take place. Sometimes you may have high growth companies that may not be paying a lot in taxes, but they want to really get their enterprise value so they can benefit from it. So that would be a case too. So really someone who is, they're not necessarily a startup, but they do have where they're having a tax liability. They want to be able to grow and to be able to sell at some point in the future. Those are usually good candidates for us to have a discussion with.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Rusty, if people want to get a hold of you and they want to know more about you, they want to read your book, listen to the podcast you have done, where's the best place where they can go to?
Well, my website is aseadvisors.com. They can contact there. And then my email is rcagle@aseadvisors.com. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm trying to think of all the things. So LinkedIn, haven't
And the
got
name
on.
of your book, you have your book behind you.
I
So
do. It's Empathy and Understanding in Business. So you can get that on Amazon. It's a bestseller. I told Chris, he's welcome for me making him a bestseller, but obviously we know who got me a bestseller award. But yeah, and the book, and then I'm doing a lot of podcasts. I'm getting a message out. One of the things that we will start is a nonprofit called 100-Year Impact, and we're going to be doing things to help people really find their purpose. And so that's some of the things that you can look forward to hearing from us too. So I hope this is beneficial for your listeners, and you're doing an amazing job. As soon as I met you, just your infectious personality was so awesome. I think I saw you've done over 350 or four, somewhere there in the podcast. So you're getting messaging out. So I love what you're doing. So keep it up. I mean, we just got to try to impact as many business owners as we can to help them, because and I'll just share this with the listeners, it would take away all government jobs. We take away federal, state, and local, probably help business owners employ almost 85% of everyone in the U.S. economy. And so we're the backbone. And so a lot of the challenges we have, if we can get more collaboration, we can get the message out, we can help them stop being overly taxed and fairly taxed, then they can get a lot more value for the jobs that they're providing and the sacrifice that they're doing in order to be able to truly benefit our economy and themselves for the risk they take. So.
amen to that. That's beautifully said. And thank you,
Well,
Rusty,
thank
for
you.
being a guest on the podcast. It's been great talking to you.
And thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.